Hey there, it's Jamin from Game Show. So some of you online this week were asking about my take on the Assassin's Creed Unity embargo fiasco. So for those of you who don't know, Assassin's Creed Unity came out, the latest in the Assassin's Creed franchise, takes place in revolutionary France. And the publisher, Ubisoft, decided to do something, well, relatively unusual, which is that they told reviewers that they wouldn't be able, or they shouldn't be able to talk about the game until noon on the day when the game was released. So typically game reviews, as you know, come out before games are actually released. In this case, Ubisoft was asking that people basically wait. The circumstances around which really bothered a lot of game reviewers. They felt like it was an onerous burden. Ben Kuchera at Polygon commented on it, he said that Ubisoft had weaponized game embargoes. Stephen Totillo at Kotaku echoed a similar refrain, saying that they would no longer accept those types of terms. And just to give you a little bit of context, an embargo, those exist in lots of different industries. Essentially, an embargo is a loose, usually non-contractual agreement between an editorial publisher and a games publisher or some other media entity, essentially that you would hold whatever it is that you want to say until a certain date. Typically, embargoes kind of work both ways. Game publishers receive the benefit of having a lot of people talk about their game on a particular day. Obviously, if all the game reviews are bad, that's bad for them. Editorial publishers, they receive the benefits of being able to talk about something before other people. And in lots of industries, a lot of times like an exclusive review is given. Usually that's like a form of favoritism. Usually like a particular editorial outlet will be rewarded. In other industries where this is much more established, those sorts of things don't happen quite as much. But if you put it in a larger context, ultimately what people were upset about was that the game had a lot of glitches in it, and that people felt that Ubisoft had held back, basically tied reviewers' hands behind their backs, allowing people to basically purchase the game for 12 hours before these reviews would come out that would essentially say a lot of negative things about the game. At Killscreen, we gave the game a 6.5, as it were. I'll talk a little bit about Killscreen's perspective on reviewing and my own as well. So Ubisoft, obviously, they made a comment. They said that they're working to adapt services and communications with consumers accordingly, both by changing the way they work with reviewers and by offering customers open betas or other early access to some games, all so they would have the information that they want. Okay, great. So case closed. Sort of. Well, here's the way I think you should be looking at this embargo situation. Before we sort of make some dictate about whether or not embargoes are a good thing or a bad thing, what that means about transparency, etc., we should ask a larger question, which is one I've asked in the past, which is, what are critics ultimately for? Okay, so there's an amazing piece, sort of like a legendary piece in journalism criticism that was written in 1980 by a woman named Renata Adler, who's an author and a journalist. Adler basically breaks critics up into two different categories. She says that there are staff critics that come up through the journalistic ranks, and what staff critics essentially do is that they do three things. They notice that work exists, where it can be bought. They provide a set of adjectives appearing to set forth an opinion of some sort, and then they give some sort of non-judgmental factual description or account. You can see she doesn't really have a lot of regard for staff critics. And then she puts this other category together known as serious critics. And serious critics, she says, what they do is they write for a time at the highest level, reporting and characterizing accurately, incorporating whatever judgmental evidence there is for that person saying. But the role for a serious publication for a critic is fundamentally different from the one that it sort of existed before that, which is these staff critics, which were basically journalists who decided they wanted to write about a particular medium. The former category, sort of the staff criticism, is where the vast majority of game reviews unfortunately sit. Their job typically is to offer information about something and to give like sort of a facile thumbs up, thumbs down. And the reality is that that type of criticism, I think, is going to go away. I don't think that that's something that is as useful as maybe it used to be. You think about in the music industry, for a long time, music critics were the only people who had access to LPs, etc. But that form of criticism, I think, will be replaced by other things, like your friends, for example. Steam just did a whole big shift over to try and show you what your friends are doing, and then algorithmic solutions as well, pulling from your social graph. This idea that criticism is somehow a service is ultimately a terrible idea. So understandably, an embargo is a problem because it impedes that type of critics critics' ability to do their job. Because what's essentially happened in the world of games is that the vast majority of reviews are part of the marketing hype cycle for publishers. Since the video game publishers control access to games, or in some cases, access to platforms, to consoles, what video game publishers ultimately want is to sort of control the flow of information. That type of relationship, as someone who's worked in other industries outside of games, doesn't really exist and is sort of unique to games. I think that ultimately this is a good thing, because what I think criticism is for is that latter category, that criticism is an art form. It's an expression. It's something that should be ultimately timeless, and that's what we should be concerned with. So if you think about criticism that way, not that criticism's sole purpose is to help you make purchasing decisions, then embargoes ultimately don't really matter. And so at Killscreen, that is the thing that we've tried to do in the past. With our reviews, I like the idea of like reviewing something and having that stand the test of time, and not just giving the simple thumbs up or thumbs down. So anyway, I'd love to know what you think. Hash it out in the comments. And if you like what you saw, please subscribe. I will see you all next week.